and Ms. Fabiano is not able to be here, so they are both excused. You guys want to the other members of the committee that are here, and Steve Arnott. Other board members in attendance: John, Jess, Kathy, Ellen, and Fiona.
I'm here.
Ms. Mangan.
Teacher rep.
I'm sorry, I'm blocked.
That's okay.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I just read up. So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Just for clarification, Marissa is on the line, so no one needs to take minutes.
Oh,
She's not on the Zoom, but she's on
She's on.
taking the minutes, so
Okay, thank
don't
you.
worry about that.
That helps.
Public participation.
I
Members
used to
of
do
the
both.
Members of the public and staff may bring to the committee's attention information, ideas, or matters of concern related to all the duties and responsibilities of this committee. This committee will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. The time for individual remarks will be apportioned according to the number of speakers and will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless extended. Is there anyone on the public line? No? No from the public here. Discussion next steps, summer facility update.
Keep it quick. Quick and simple. General maintenance is always going on throughout the summer. Our buildings look really good because we were ahead of the game when we started the summer because of the lack of use in our buildings. We did change to a new floor finish this year, so floors look phenomenal. I've gotten a lot of compliments from my administrators already. The 2 gym floors are 100% complete at the middle school and at Vogel. I implore you, if you have an opportunity to see them, they look amazing, amazing. Like Barrel Conover. Okay, and that was done on our Alliance grant. Okay, also on our Alliance grant was the BMS systems. The BMS system at Vogel is 100% complete. The BMS system at Torrington Middle School is about 95% complete.
Right.
Yeah, Allie just finished up the last IT stuff with them. We had to put a new water heater in Vogel Wetmore. One of the water heaters, or they call them hot water generators, let go and it started leaking. So last week we were able to get another one. Unfortunately, it was a little bit more money than I thought it was going to be because of the lack of supply, the supply and demand thing that the pandemic has caused. It was about $600 more in anticipated cost than what we thought it was going to be. But it's done, it's in, we're good. We're pretty much all caught up on our Alliance grant stuff. We're getting the last invoices in now, so that Lynn will be able to close out that Alliance grant with the state and everything will be approved with that. Other than that, that's all I really have to report for summer stuff. I am working on capital. There are a couple capital projects that are, we're hoping to get done this summer. But because of the time frame on when I got the capital and the 2 months that we have to get things done and doing the RFQ, RFP process and development and stuff, we're going to do some of those capital projects through some of our shutdowns. So that'll just be a continuation of some work.
Anyone have any questions?
So Don has invited us to look at the middle school floor in the gym. Are we able to go back into schools now, or is that still fair hold?
So at this point, as long as you wear a mask, you can go in. We still have children in our buildings, and schools are mass areas. Now, in terms of the numbers of people, we are trying to schedule meet and greets and welcome backs and things like that. A lot of those events will be outside, but we are trying to stagger the numbers so that we don't have, they have not put a cap on the amount of people able to go back in. So we're hoping that that stays in place so that we can welcome people back, welcome parents. I know Torrington's planning a welcome back, as are other elementary schools. So ninth grade orientations in place. Yeah, so the answer is right now on August 4th, yes. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll do it quickly.
Yeah.
You never know.
Any questions from down there? Yes. Sandy, go ahead. Okay, possible truck purchase.
The district has 3 vehicles. We keep one at the middle school with a snowplow on it. We keep one at the high school with a snowplow on it. And then there's one that my custodian, Christopher Paganini, who's in this building, uses. And that truck travels a lot throughout the week to each one of the sites. He moves a lot of boxes back and forth, does the mail and whatnot. If you probably remember, originally there was a red truck that was here. The red truck we brought up to the service garage, and they put it up on the lift. And upon doing an inspection on it, although the vehicle had very limited miles on it, most of its miles are city miles, and with the sand and salt and stuff that they put on the road, the underneath of the vehicle was completely destroyed with rust, brake lines, everything, and the garage deemed it unsafe. We stuck that up at the middle school, not to be used on the road, but only around the middle school if it was an emergency. That left us with only 2 vehicles. The one that Chris is currently driving was a truck that the city gave us in lieu of a dump truck that we used to have that we didn't have a need for. That truck got 116,000 miles on it. And, you know, sort of getting to the end of its usable life in the near future. And we have a need for another truck to replace the red one that's there. What I would like to do to make this palatable is I would like the new truck to be used here on Midgeon Avenue for Chris, who puts the most miles on a vehicle. So give him the newest truck so that he can run the newest truck around and leave the other trucks out at the sites where they're needed on a limited basis. Hence the reason for my request for a new vehicle. Lynn and I discussed it. She has some more information on what she did as far as looking into on the truck.
Welcome, Lynn. I'm not sure if everyone's had an opportunity to meet Lynn.
Oh, Lynn's awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
This is Lynn's first meeting, though.
So, we're gonna do the intro in the next, but since we're speaking in this one.
No worries. I went to Tasca Ford that has the state contract for trucks for the state of Connecticut, and got a cost for the vehicle, which is in total $36,238.30, which is 20% off the aftermarket MSRP and 6% off the OEM discount of MSRP. It's a very good price, and you don't pay for it all at once. You put it on a Ford Motor Credit lease to own. You buy it all for $1 when the lease is done. If this is something that's palatable, I can just look to use the funds that we would have used to fix the trucks to pay for this. So take it right out of the truck repair and maintenance line over the next 5 to 7 years to pay for it.
Go ahead, Armin.
Is there anybody local that you can buy from that get the same deal? They also have,
I do not believe so, but I can look into that for you.
yeah, I'd rather stay local if we can.
Does the lease agreement include maintenance to the vehicle? Oil changes, just standard maintenance that would have to be done, or is that something we have to pay?
The oil changes usually are included. You'd have to take the car to Berlin, the vehicle to Berlin to do it.
All the more reason to have it local. I mean, if it were something that we could get where maintenance would be included, that would be great.
It may be a thing that I could get a lower price for.
And what about, would it make more sense or save in interest if we paid for it outright rather than financed it?
It can be done either way. I just
So maybe we could look at those numbers.
Yeah.
wasn't sure which was more palatable to the board.
We
Being
need
this
to
is
look at
my
both.
first meeting.
Yeah, no worries, no, that's fine. Just maybe have those numbers too, so we could see if it's a significant difference. I don't know, usually interest is, but
The last vehicle that I purchased through this plan, I think our interest rate was 4%. So I'm not sure what it is now. That was a year and a half ago.
so,
And that's on the whole thing, including the plow package?
Yes,
yeah, there's a breakdown.
that
of it. We
includes
got
everything.
right here.
That's everything.
Oh,
Well, I didn't know if they separated it out,
It is separate on another,
if the finance included.
And
Oh,
just,
no.
just as a FYI, we wouldn't be asking for a sander. That's nothing that we get involved with. The plow is just more of an emergency use where, you know, something happens, we get a quick snowstorm during the day, our plow contractor is backed up, or we get some, you know, some windblown snow that we need to push back. That's always been our practice, is to have those plows. And at the middle school and the high school, they use the plows on the sidewalks because we have such a broad area that we have to plow.
Yes, and Andy?
If we were to buy it outright, I'm assuming we would have to take it out of our capital budget. Right? Versus, because you're talking about doing it through our maintenance line item.
yes.
So that would be different.
It'd be different.
Two things, the plow contract doesn't include the sidewalks at the schools you're
Does
talking
not,
about?
no, the sidewalks at the schools are done by the custodians. It's done.
In all the schools?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We talking diesel or gasoline?
Gasoline. Diesel, you're gonna add about $4,000 to that price.
Plus it costs more to run.
Well, yeah, but there are reasons to go diesel too. I mean,
If,
depending how long you're gonna run it and-
If-
and
right, if I looked at the red truck and the white truck that's at the high school, that are both 2006s, they have 47,000 miles on them. It's not enough mileage to justify the purchase of a diesel.
What is the wait time, just because of the lack of inventory everywhere? I know, some people are waiting 4 or 5 months to get vehicles.
They
they're
actually
ordering.
have the F-250s in stock.
That's the price for an F-250.
250.
250.
it's a good
Yeah,
price.
you need,
a really
you need
good
at least,
price.
you need at least a 250 for your
Yeah.
plow on it.
Because as we've heard, it's-
And for what we haul.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you saw what we haul on a daily basis with that, we need the heavier truck.
And then if you use the trailer and you got stuff.
Correct.
Right there.
So I think that'd be important for us to know too, locally, if they have the inventory, you can get the vehicles.
So he gave me this quote on 7/21. So I'll have to go back and ask him if they're still available.
Yep.
And then I will check with all the dealers in the local area. And I'll get that back to you.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
know my brother's Ford dealership is 4 months out on those trips, so. Any other questions?
just if we could just try to get the numbers together for the interest cost versus buying outright too, that'd be great.
If we were to take it out of that maintenance line item, is there still adequate funds left in that line item to cover the maintenance on the other trucks that we have?
There's $30,000 in that line, so I would believe that there would be sufficient to cover the other 2 vehicles for the rest of the year.
We've made a lot of corrections in how we do maintenance on the vehicles now. The maintenance is now done by a private garage in the community, and it's no longer done by the street department. The numbers were exorbitant from the street department versus what we could do at a private garage. Their turnaround time was quicker, and their overall labor rate was cheaper.
The city subsidizing their
But it was-
repairs.
Yeah, right.
It was the city that inspected it? The city took it to the
No,
city
it's a
people?
private garage.
Okay, so they're, the ones who said that it's rotted out underneath.
Oh, yeah,
Private,
I was
okay.
underneath it.
Okay.
I didn't want to be underneath it, believe me.
Does that fit holes in the frame?
Oh, it's the brake lines, everything is
Right.
just gone underneath it. It's that road, it's that
No,
liquid road salt that they use.
Yeah.
A lot of your cars are, as a matter of fact, here's, so just a
Calcium
real
chloride.
quick. So
Awful.
the gentleman who decided to drive his car make his own drive-through lane into Burger King, it's exactly what happened to his vehicle. He was coming down 202. He stepped on the brakes, blew the brake lines out, had no brake control of the vehicle anymore, and hence drove through the parking lot and hit the car and drove it into the building. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want somebody to get hurt. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, this needs to come off the road.
What was the year of that truck?
It's a 2006.
2006. State can fix that too, but they don't want to. There's an additive they can put in the calcium chloride to make it
Correct.
not rot the thing.
And he's on the dollar too.
Any other questions on the truck?
We added something to our maintenance plan to address how, like, put like some sort of coating on the bottom
Yeah,
of
are
the
we
truck.
undercoating it?
Something like that, because I know there's products available.
Fluid film. So hence that was one of the things that the street department didn't do. We'll fluid film the vehicles when they get ready for winter time. So
You could also undercarriage wash them occasionally just to keep the road salt off.
Yeah.
Questions down there on the truck? TMS FOIA project.
So I was in contact with Castle Booze today. They're the ones that are working on the plan development for the FOIA project. Paul just had a couple of more questions for me before he finalizes the plan. I expect to have something possibly next week on my desk as a formal plan that I can get ready to do a RFQ request and go out to bid for it. So far, it looks good, it's, from what I have from him.
What time frame do you think for the RFQs? Would you give for them to 2 weeks or a month?
I would,
Don't we want to do we want to do the work before?
it won't get done before school. I'll have to look at how the project gets developed or done. Because it's in the foyer and away from so many classrooms, we may be able to do a portion of that work or a fair amount of that work while school is active. But again, it's a discussion with the administrators of the building and the superintendent on whether or not we can get that done. When it's difficult because when you get approval to do this stuff on the 28th of June, and you only have 2 months in the summer to work and you still have to do project development and stuff like that, it just, the timing is tough on this. We're even if just step off it quick because we also were given approval to do the replacement of the floor at Southwest School. And it's the same thing. I just got back all the bid specs today, actually, for the RFQ process for that. So we'll start that with the process that we'll look at doing that floor replacement over the Christmas break, and we'll write that into the RFQ. I was told it's about a 4-day process to do that floor. So it's the same thing with this FOIA project. It's just to get that money, to get that approval on that money so late in the year when you have 2 months, and every contractor and every architect in the state has already got their work set for the summer, they know schools are shut down. So, we're a day late and a dollar short, I guess.
Questions from anyone? Guys down there, okay? All right, summer tech update.
So there's a tech update, the trip is summer tech update. I don't
Sounds
know.
good.
It feels like pumpkin spice season almost. So the tech team has collected, physically cleaned, software cleaned, updated, image, asset tagged, and inventory over 3,200 devices in the last 4 weeks. With a few hundreds of those were already completed within 1 week because we had summer school. And we have summer school at the middle school and at Vogel, and these devices in use. So we had those turned around within 7 days. So very proud of the team. It's amazing. It's great. We are working on our E-rate project, where all the equipment has arrived on site. The project will upgrade our entire WAN infrastructure, which is our building-to-building connectivity. And that will allow us to see network traffic, increase security, have a single pane of glass for every traffic that exists on the network. Our proposed go live date is October 11th for that. So we'll miss the summer deadline also slightly due to supply issues. But that's in full swing right now. And we're in the process of all the racking and stacking, so putting all the equipment, inventorying it, configuring it, and putting it to all the closets. And then once we're confident that everything's set 100%, we will do the live cut over a 3-day weekend. Then we've been working on the application for ECF, that is the Emergency Connectivity Fund. With that, we will purchase iPads for kindergarten and first grade because they're touchscreen devices and they will be 100% funded. Doesn't cost us a dime. Having iPads in kindergarten and first grade is going to greatly help the students be engaged because the whole touch idea is just so much more important than those younger ages. And we'll have software for them to really be engaged so much easier than putting them on a Chromebook. We realized over the past year that we still find families not really engaging with Optimum Online to get internet access at home. We found that to be very difficult. And so we'll be getting extra 100 hotspots as well to give out to families. And again, that will be 100% funded through CNAP, depending on that application next week. Our building techs have been going through all the classrooms because beginning of the summer, all equipment is being taken out of the rooms, rooms are being cleaned, so everything's been put back. So we're going through, hooking everything up, testing everything, making sure everything is ready for school. That has been completed, except the rooms are being used for some school. We'll double check those as well. Then we've been installing critical server updates. It takes the system down when nobody's here. It's nice to move on vacation, I don't bother anybody when I turn the server off. And we're also going through some of the data closets and going through and tagging older equipment that may no longer be useful for us, and just making the rooms nice and clean. We are in process of the Exchange to Google transition, making sure that everybody has their own files. We'll get to each board member as it suits everyone's schedule. Make sure that we do not interrupt your email workflow. But this is in full swing at the moment. We hope to complete that in the next couple weeks. And we also have established a district-wide to-do list to make sure that prior to the start of school, kids get everything they need to be ready for the first day, and then our teachers are ready. So we're swinging. We're in full, yeah, we're running.
How long will we be getting the message that our certificate makes or lack of a certificate on the website makes it an unsafe site to visit?
That's something we'll have to talk to a provider for. That certificate is, that message is being generated by your browser.
Yeah, both Firefox and Edge says not secure.
But it's something we have to talk to our website provider.
I mean, once you figure out what it is, you know it's not a problem.
Well, I know exactly what it is, what they're gonna charge us for. So I can tell you what my long-term solution is. My long-term solution is to completely revamp the website with something that's dynamic, easy to find information. And the short term will be a fix for a certificate, but the long-term fix will be to have a greatly redesigned website.
Because I'm thinking maybe parents would be scared away by that because they wouldn't be able to figure out what was going on and they just back out and never go back. Right.
Questions?
roof projects, TMS and Vogel Wetmore.
So because this may become confusing, here's a little guide sheet. And so we were at a building committee bonding discussion at the mayor's office the other day. And then the mayor asked myself, Ed happened to be there because he was doing the building committee project, about bonding and roof, TMS roof, Vogel Wetmore roof, and possible repurposing the funding for the TMS windows. So later this evening, we'll talk about ARPA funds and if the board wants to approve the TMS windows out of the ARPA funds. I've mentioned that several times over the last few months as a possible expenditure coming out of ARPA, which the state has approved should we want to go down that road. So if we did that, the bond was for $700,000 for the window project. Those funds could be repurposed. They've never been bonded out. So that's, the actual cost right now is nothing to the taxpayers. So just to kind of give you the sense of what's going on. Now, for the TMS roof, the referendum quoted the town bonded amount as $700,000. The state portion was $512,000. The town portion was $187,000. So essentially, the actual cost to the taxpayers was $200,000. So in that capital reserve, we have $500,000 left. So the question was, do we want to put this out to referendum in November to combine the TMS roof and the Vogel Wetmore roof? And the numbers that were floated around were the 1.2 to 1.5. So just for simplicity, if we said 1.5 for Vogel Wetmore, 1.5 for TMS roof, then you say, okay, that's 3 million, right? And then if you take the 500,000, that's 2.5 million. So would we want to do a referendum? And then if we didn't do a referendum, we would have to go to Board of Finance for approval on using the 500,000 in capital reserve for the TMS roof. Now, the only reason why this money could still be used was because on the original referendum verbiage, it stated TMS roof. It didn't say, oh, this is this kind of roof, this is a metal roof. It just said TMS roof. So although we would need Board of Finance approval, it's doable. It's doable with those funds without bringing that back up to referendum. The reimbursement rate that we received on the most recent project which was the TMS roof, the non-metal roof was the 73%. Okay, so hopefully that makes some sense. And then as you ask questions, feel free. Just the wording of this, even when you go to referendum, may be confusing to folks who are trying to vote on this. One other issue that I did bring up is I don't want our taxpayers or townsfolk to feel like we are very ungrateful because they just passed the referendum for the high school, the middle school, and our central office building. And now we're going to referendum yet again. The Vogel Wetmore roof was in the capital plan for it was actually 22, 23. I looked again tonight. I don't think it's 23, 24, but it wasn't this next year. It wasn't 21, 22. So John can speak to whether we can wait or not wait. I know that when we've spoken before, the metal roof for the middle school we really do feel needs to be replaced as soon as possible, or worked on, our solution. And hang on just one second. And then the Vogel Wetmore roof, John can speak to, if we can just wait a year or two. But I don't know if you want to jump in, John, or you want to
Yeah, so,
wait for questions, or what have you.
so the reason why, I'll start with Vogel, because that one's kind of easy to get out of the way, I think, at this point. The reason why Vogel came to fruition was because if you remember, back in the spring, we were at our meetings and I had the SCG 1050 forms and I gave you guys a copy of that form. Well, what I had to do was dig into a lot of historical data into the building, and Lynn knows this all too well because she had to do it for the district that she was in. And 1995 flashed in my face and I went, oh wow, Vogel Wetmore's roof is 30 years old, on the plus side of 30 years old at this point. And although it doesn't really have any active leaks right now, there are areas of deterioration starting on a roof, and it's time to look at that roof and get ahead of it before it gets ahead of us, like the middle school did. So the middle school kind of got ahead of us, and we do have active leaks. We've had the roofer up there doing some work and trying to stay on top of those active leaks at the middle school. So I really kind of feel like we could keep that 22-23 timeline on the Vogel roof, because we really don't have those active leaks going on the roof at this point in time. But I don't want to lose sight of it and say 5 years down the road go, oh my God, now we have water pouring in the building, and so we really need to stay stringent on that timeline. Go to the middle school. We do have active leaks at the middle school. We're chasing them. We put all those nice new ceiling tiles in. That kind of helped us to direct us to somewhere where the leaks were. And we're replacing ceiling tiles now because we've done a lot of leak repair. But those leaks are going to continue to pop up, and it's an issue with the fasteners. I don't want you to misunderstand what, it's not what we're proposing for, let's call it 1.5 million as a round number. What we're proposing is not a roof replacement. It is a coating system that the state has approved for a 20-year warranty period. Because remember, in state reimbursement, anything that you do has to last 20 years.
Right.
They've used this same coating system in Region 14. I know the director down there, he's very happy with what they did. They would come in and remove every single fastener on the roof. It's almost 1 million fasteners. They would reseal all the fasteners, they would clean all the roof down, and then they would recoat the existing roof with this special coating, waterproofing coating material, which would then re-waterproof the roof. So it's not, I don't want you to understand that it's not a roof replacement. A roof replacement is $3 to $4 million for that building.
What is the life expectancy of a full roof?
Well, I mean, they say that metal, technically they say metal should last you 50 years. It probably lasts you more than 50 years, but 50 years is what they kind of say. It'll last you 50 years. Now, we have a metal roof that's on there, and it's not the metal that's leaking, it's the fasteners that are leaking. So that would be the lifespan on a new roof. For this, we would easily get the 20 years out of it. There is a maintenance that has to happen 10 years in to keep the 20-year warranty up. And probably a continued maintenance after that would keep it going and leak-free for some time after the 20 years.
What's the cost of the maintenance?
I don't have that number yet, so I will.
Yeah. That'd be a good number to have too, because if you're looking at 3 to 4 million and you're looking at 1.5, but then you got to maintain it every 10 years. What's the cost breakdown? I have one more question.
Yep. Okay.
And then underneath the metal roof, my assumption is there's insulation under there?
So the way that the metal roof is, the metal roof sits on top of a somewhat of a steel deck. And then below that steel deck, there's a fireproofing insulation barrier that's sprayed there, and that sits on the trusses. So we don't anticipate, like like the insulation on the flat roof where we had that, remember it was a 128 square foot area where we had to remove it because it was so wet?
Yeah.
That's not what would happen in this scenario. There's not a place for water to puddle and pool and sit. When it leaks through the roof and the fireproofing, it leaks through all of that and then it dries out again. And so we don't anticipate that we would have those insulation barrier problems that we had in the flat roof.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. So first, back to the referendum, just for clarification. Was the TMS middle school already put to referendum? The roof?
Yeah, so that
So we-
passed in
But-
2018.
Okay, and we didn't do anything with it.
No, I love your question,
Okay,
because
so,
that's
all right.
exactly, no,
I
that's
just
exactly
to be
what's gonna
clear.
happen
That-
with
okay.
taxpayers,
Right, just to
right?
be clear, so
So,
we did ask for it and we're trying.
and we got it, and we did part of the roof,
Right.
but we didn't do the
So
metal
I'm
roof.
100% clear
So-
now where this is going.
Right,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what folks are gonna say. How many times are
Absolutely.
you doing this
They're gonna
roof?
look at, they're gonna
What's
think
going
we're
on?
crazy, right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
the problem?
Right, okay, so that was my first question. The Vogel Wetmore complex, were both roofs done at the same time in 95?
Correct.
They both were together,
Yeah.
okay?
That metal roof is a completely different install than the metal roof at the middle
school.
school. There are no fasteners. That is a fastenerless roof.
Which is the problem of the water.
How did that sound?
Yeah.
You like that? Is that in the dictionary, that word?
I think you just made that up.
Yeah.
And then the coding system, I think you kind of answered this with one of Armin's questions, but what first popped into my head was, if we're just coating the existing roof, how do we ensure there's no dampness in between? Because we know where that could lead. So I think you answered that question with the procedure they go through
Correct.
to ensure it's clean and dry.
Yep.
Before they seal it.
That's correct.
And I have to put fasteners back in. I can't do it fastenerless.
No, it's actually the fastenerless roof. I'm gonna pay for that one. No, I am. No, the roof system that was put up there was designed specifically to have the fasteners through it. It's one of the biggest issues that we face, but there's no way, if you remove the fasteners, you have holes everywhere, and then you have to have the roof physically attached somehow. And so there's no way to physically attach
So
the roof without
frame
those fasteners.
design is a fastener design.
That's right.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the full scope of the funding scheme.
Sure.
This is your question.
So
So-
it seems to me, just tell me if/where I'm wrong, that you've broken this out into sort of two different options here. With the first being that monies that exist currently would be repurposed with an additional cost put out to referendum. Is that right? For this first option here? You saying or is the repurposing of the $700,000 the referendum question?
Yeah, well, that's up to us to decide what we'd like to do, because you can say, okay, you want to just do a referendum item for Vogel Wetmore roof at 1.5 million. Or you could say, okay, obviously, yeah, so this part is really messy, and that's the difficulty.
Right.
Because you already have some money in hand that could be used for the TMS metal roof, right?
Right.
And that's the 500,000. So even though we have to say, okay, that could be 1.5 million. When you get reimbursement, we would have enough money in that 500,000, if it's the same rate that we got before, to not have to put that out to referendum. But if we did it with the Vogel Wetmore, then you'd have to.
Right, and I get that because the municipality has to bond the full cost of the
Right.
Correct.
project. They don't actually sell the bonds. Yeah, so I get that part, that the city would essentially be selling more bonds than it really needs to complete the second half of the project. But the 700,000, it seems as though we're not sure whether that has to go back to referendum for it to be reused for other projects?
So now I understand your question. So we would have to go back to
Okay,
referendum
that's
for the windows. Thanks for clarifying. Because you would have to repurpose the
Right.
legal was on the phone yesterday while we were all sitting in a group. And because the verbiage did not say anything about because we originally got that money for windows, now you have to go back to say, okay, taxpayers, forget about that. Now we're repurposing those funds and what you approved last time to go here instead of there.
And did the city know if they had already sold those bonds yet? Had they already?
It's unauthorized, it's authorized but unissued debt.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Yeah, that actually is good then. And then, so it seems like the second option here doesn't include Vogel Wetmore. Is the implication that we would kind of bump that to a referendum in a different year? Because it's on the capital plan later on?
Correct.
Okay.
And then when we discussed yesterday, some other folks from the city happened to be there and they said, well, we may have other roof projects to do and maybe we could offer a referendum talking about municipal buildings as well as district buildings. So that's a possibility. So there's all kinds of options for the future if we want to go down that road, but it's a lot of hypotheticals and that's what's
Right.
difficult.
And in budget, to go off your point, I think, in budget, we're gonna talk about using funds as a possibility for some of these projects.
So the only thing that is in the ARPA funds, just so that you know, that's germane to this discussion, are the windows.
Windows,
So the window replacement that we've discussed ad nauseum at 1.2 million, the whole process had to be restarted with the state. So for a variety of different reasons and paperwork and difficulty.
So we have the money for the windows?
It would
Through
be
ARPA?
included in ARPA. So yes, you'll see that budget
Okay.
in the next meeting.
Would it be cleaner to use the $700,000 plus ARPA funds rather than trying to repurpose it through a referendum?
The state won't allow us to do that because the state doesn't like messy bits. They don't deal with messy parts. They only deal with whole. So they're not going to say, they don't, yeah, let's take a piece of this and let's take a piece of that. They just want to know what you're doing.
So we got to deal with this.
Correct.
My last question, sorry, Tom. My last question is, is your ARPA plan final? I guess really what I'm getting at with that is that if we were to just spend the authorized funds on the window project, are there other things that you want or need to spend the ARPA funds on? Because to my mind, and maybe my assessment is wrong, the voter doesn't really care about bond debt once it's been authorized. So I actually think it would be more difficult to explain to the public writ large how this process works, where the 700,000 hasn't actually been spent and we're just asking them to let us spend it on something else. That seems like a really messy referendum project versus just spending it as authorized and kind of along the line that the city was explaining to you, put all the roofs out to referendum next year, use this money for the windows, if you can use the ARPA money that you requested for the windows for something else.
Okay, so we could
The issue is
always
it's
use
also
ARPA money for something else, right? Because we have so many different needs. The difficulty is, this happened in 2018. So now the cost of windows is 1.2 million.
There's not.
So there's not enough. So we're
Creates
in
another
this
mess.
really
Yeah, right,
messy
yeah.
situation. So even if we wanted to go out for the 1.2 or just windows, we would have to go to referendum because we are working on all of these different pieces in a different way.
So how much money for windows is in your ARPA plan? Is that 1.2 million?
1.2, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want me to pass that out now? I know it's,
Well,
Can I
I mean, we can talk
Okay,
the only question
it's in the
about it.
We'll
next
talk about it.
meeting, sorry.
I don't
But yeah,
want to get like
1.2,
super into
how's
the
that?
weeds. I'm just trying to make sure I have a good idea of what the
Sure.
options are in front of us.
There's only
I guess
one
that's it for
caveat with
the actual questions.
the project for the roof, the funds have to be, the construction has to be started prior to December 19th, 2021 in order for them to reimburse.
So I want to go back a little further, and Ed hit some of what I'm wondering about. But the other things that you could use ARPA money for, if we don't use it for this, the opportunity cost, as an economist would say, or maybe we should say opportunity cost here. But what other things could we use this money for? I have another question afterwards.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure we have other things we want from this one.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sure. What would they be?
So the reason why the windows fall into ARPA as acceptable is because we're talking about ventilation and air quality and safety. And we know that that's a major issue. And that's one component of ARPA funds, how you can use them. But you can also use them for academic supports. And we've had many, many services offered this summer. We're going to continue next year. We've gotten all kinds of plans, which we told you about and will continue to tell you about. Family and community connections, social emotional well-being, technology and the digital divide. That's also in the ARPA, and you'll see that in just a minute because we did
Okay,
put
no,
the
that's
computers
good
in.
enough. That was,
Okay.
there are academic things, educational things we need this
Sure.
money for.
All of,
And instead, we're going to spend it on something that we had in the capital budget already. And then it got bounced out of the capital budget. So I'm back to a referendum. You've been saying we will put it out to referendum. We mean obviously the city will,
Yes.
because we don't put anything, not
Correct.
in this state, out to referendum. Now, the last time we had something out to referendum, the mayor said she couldn't support it because she was an elected official. Do we have any thought that, is there any pledge that she would be behind this vocally or not? Because that would make a difference.
sure, I can't speak for the
She
mayor.
didn't say that.
She was proposing,
Right, but she
she was
didn't say
putting on
she
the
would
table.
support it.
I think we'd have to get really clear on what we were going
Okay, no, I was
to
just
put
wondering
forward.
because last time, no, you're right. We go back to the people and say, okay, thanks for giving us the money last time. Here's what we need now.
Right.
It's like going to church. you know?
Right.
This is what we need this week. So, and and there are other things we need the money for and so on. Leave it at that. Thank you.
Ellen? Any questions?
I don't have a question per se, but just while we're on the topic, I think where I'm at here, and I don't know if there's additional supporting information that you might have really today. I think I would rather, if it's possible with the project, to leave the window bond where it is and put the balance of the cost of the project in the ARPA plan. If it's possible to pay for a project from two funding sources, put the remainder of the 1.2 million you requested in ARPA back into educational supports and other things you need, and just ask the city to add our roof projects, whatever they may be, if it's just mobile or what have you, to their bond question that they're talking about putting forward for the 2022 election. I think it's better to ask the taxpayer to approve one bond package for all of the roofs that the city needs to bond, because the city owns our buildings, right? So if they're gonna put their roofs out to bond, I would think it's better for everybody if they just ask one time. And then we have them do this maneuver with the Board of Finance for the 500,000 for the TMS roof, because that I'm understanding is the priority that you feel needs to be done ASAP. And so, and if we need to expend those funds quickly, that's what I think I would do. I just feel like, and I think John and I at least are on the same wavelength here, the remaining ARPA funds that you would be able to kick out of the window project and into other supports would be really beneficial to the student. And it wouldn't actually, I think, make life that difficult for the folks, learning and teaching in Boca Wetmore to have their roof project go out 1 year later.
So can I just clarify, because I want to be sure that I'm truly understanding, okay? So you're saying that we would be able to have one funding source, so the state would be happy because we would take that 500,000 from capital reserve and we would take the money from the window project, go out and bond, which would make it the 1.2. And then it would cover that and it would not have to go back out to referendum. It's use is for what it was voted on and approved.
I think you combine the two things I was thinking. So I definitely, I'm on board with this roof money that's left over, right, being pushed into our current roof needs, right? So for the middle school, your second option here, right, use 500,000 in capital reserve for TMS roof with the need board of finance approval. I'm on board with that. I think that's the best option. And I don't know if it's possible, but you said you put 1.2 million in ARPA funds in your plan request to the windows, and there's 700,000 in authorized bonding kicking around for that project. Would it be possible? And it sounds like maybe you were
Because the state will say, no,
you can't
we
run
don't,
from two sources.
we get to choose, and we're not gonna play, we're not gonna do that. Because you're telling us that you're gonna do some from here and some for here, and we don't wanna have to deal with that. So you just get your money all in one little bucket, and you tell us where that's coming from, and then we'll approve it. And they get to decide that because they approve the project. So we don't have the leeway there. So the only thing that we could do is what I thought you were saying at first, which is combine the 500,000 from capital reserve with the 700,000 that was already approved, put that into windows. But then,
We still have to ask about.
then we'd still have to, worry about the TMS roof.
I think
So-
there's significant, this is the last thing I'll say then, I guess. I think there's significant risk to putting a referendum question that's always going to be badly worded. To ask people about 700,000 in bonds that they approved several years ago to be repurposed and then issued for a different project. And this is mostly the city's business. You should just not issue that 700,000 in debt and ask the roof question as one bond question for Vogel Wetmore. Not talking about TMS. I see a lot of risk in us not getting our Vogel Wetmore roof project if we try to explain to people in a ballot question that we want to use 700,000 in debt they already approved for something else for this thing, right? We're already kind of bouncing around back and forth and we know about this stuff.
Right.
I think there's a lot of risk of people just sort of rejecting that conceptually because it sounds kind of shifty.
Yep.
Kind of.
Like it's all above
Yeah.
board, but it's just a complex issue of municipal
Right.
finance that most people don't care about.
We will get the blame
Right,
for the value.
100%.
And we may not get our.
Can we just not take out that $700,000 bond?
Yes.
Just not incur the debt?
Right, I think that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
that to me sounds a lot more, that's a lot more responsible sounding than, hey, because we thought we needed that money, and then this unforeseen source of funding came
Sure.
about that can cover that expense, we're not gonna take that money.
Well, the other issue is
I
that
mean,
money's not
that's-
enough.
Right, but
Originally it was.
even
then-
if it was enough, I mean, I think,
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think that's a good faith thing to do.
Yeah, no, I
To
agree,
say,
but I mean. it's
You guys
not-
approved that, but then we found out we could cover it through this other avenue, and we're not gonna incur that debt on behalf of the city.
And that's easier to explain, I think. My biggest worry personally, my worry isn't about the city's balance sheet as much as it is about our project that we feel we really need not being approved by the voter. And I think that's a lot easier to explain to the public about where their money's going and where it's not going.
Any questions? Okay, here's my 2 cents on this. First, very strange that this was discussed at a building committee bonding meeting, which obviously our school projects, capital projects have nothing to do with the building committee. So the co-chairs of the building committee were there, other town officials, but no one from the Board of Education was there, elected members. So it's a little bit odd because it's our projects. That's first. 2, all of you will all know, many times we've gotten to this roundabout about gross budgeting, net budgeting. We have to put in our gross numbers for our capital projects versus the net, which is what we've always had to do. City council would have to agree to that. Whatever, so even if we're anticipating a 73% reimbursement, which we don't know what that's gonna be, city council has to approve the gross amount. So obviously how you end up with the 500,000 is because we bonded out the total cost of the project. And then when the state does the reimbursement goes into capital reserves, even though we bonded out the whole project. So there's a lot of ifs that would have to happen for all of these things to happen. So the capital reserve could be moved to the window project, let's just say, by a vote of the Board of Finance, which would take one of our projects off of our list. Or we could pay for the windows in the ARPA. But even the referendum questions, all of that would have to go through city council. And to have, this meeting and then say like, they want to know in 2 weeks what we want to do, but there's so many other variables. So I personally think this would be better served, as I've said before, with a joint meeting of all parties so that, we can say, we want this, but city council may not agree to it, or finance may not agree to it. And then what do? We come back to the drawing board. So to me, it would seem best to have either a triple meeting where we talk about these capital projects and how we're going to accomplish them, because the TMS roof, the longer we don't repair it, the more damage it's doing to the building. So I don't think we can take a chance. And for those of you that worked on the last referendum, it is a lot of work. And you have to actually door knock. There's a lot involved in getting a referendum passed. So, and I think when you're confusing the referendum question, it's going to be even harder to get it passed. Everyone thinks we already did the middle school roof. So that in itself is going to, because people are going to say, as they do, they obviously put a bad roof on if it needs replaced already. So there's a lot of variables, and I don't think we can get the roof replaced in our ARPA money.
No, we cannot.
then-
I already talked with the state about that.
But Costa from the state had said the city could get the roof done in their ARPA money, and there's an argument about that, but so we can't put the roof in our ARPA money.
No, I think we do this, we asked the Board of Finance to move the capital reserve for the roof. I think
For the
everybody's, yeah, that's
For
what
the
it says.
windows.
No, for the roof.
But then how do we pay for the rest of the roof? So that's 500. We would still
Right.
need $1 million for TMS.
That would
Okay.
cover the TMS route
Yeah.
because of the reimbursement rate.
Right.
So if gross, it's 1.5, and then if we have approximately 73%, then the 500,000 would be enough for the TMS route.
Okay, so who's gonna pay for the roof up front till we get the reimbursement? That was the whole
Yeah.
Well, that's
reason
why-
why
that's
we have
what-
to do the gross.
Right, and that's why you have to bring it to Board of Finance and City Council, and we can't make that decision by ourselves, right?
So we would be asking them to advance us the $500,000 from capital reserve to cover the full price of the roof, and then when the
Right.
reimbursement comes in, it goes back to capital reserve. Is
Right.
that
Well,
Like
then
full
they
$1.5
get-
million.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
500, we need $1.5 million.
in addition to the 7? Because we're already getting 700.
Well, the
We're
700 is
treating
for the
state
window.
like they're, like, essentially, we would be treating state reimbursement like a credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? The city pays it up front and then the state reimburses them, as opposed to the city putting it on its actual credit card.
Yeah,
And that's, so the city would have to kick in the full price.
right.
They'd have to
Pay the
agree to it
contracts,
first.
yeah, agree to and pay.
Yeah.
And then when the state reimbursement check comes in when the project is concluded,
Right.
After closing.
the city's only portion that they would actually pay would be covered by the capital reserve. And everything else they paid would get reimbursed to them at the end. State reimbursement always comes at the end.
But
The
So
city council would need to vote to put $1,500,000 roof onto the middle school. because we have to provide copies of the minutes.
Yeah.
You'll recall, because even when we
Yeah.
vote to put it there, we have to have the specific wording and we have to provide proof of those minutes. So,
But those, we wouldn't use that $700,000.
Correct,
The
because
bonding that is out there.
They would
It's
retire
never
that
been
window.
They would retire
For the window.
that for the windows.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we were just talking about, because we bonded 700,000 for the roof.
well,
Right.
yeah, and it's, the bonds haven't been issued yet.
For the roof, they
windows.
were.
they approved it at referendum,
Yeah.
never bonded.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
Not the
basically in the
windows,
mix.
just the
I
roof.
mean, we haven't actually gotten it yet, but we have that.
right, but it's less money that needs to be bonded, which is helpful for the city. Look at it that way.
Right, they make out at the end.
Right.
The only problem I would foresee if I were on the Board of Finance would be that it looks like it may look like they've drawn their fund balance lower than
Yes.
it'll actually end up at the end, and they might be a little worried about that, but I think the case that we have all laid out here makes it clear that they're made whole here and end up spending less money and bonding less money if we do it this way. And I think with complex financial maneuvers like this stuff, it's better to put it before the Board of Finance and the council who deal with this all the time than to try to explain municipal finance to people who generally don't have to care about it very much.
Right.
Where do the windows fall into this?
So
It would,
we
or we
could
could use
put
the
it in,
ARPA money for the
Yeah.
window,
Correct.
okay.
or we could,
But that would eliminate your entire ARPA fund.
no,
No.
there's,
No, we
there's
can't.
there's a
Oh, there's
whole
more
breakdown.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Because
okay.
remember,
I don't know
yeah,
why.
6
Yeah,
million.
thought
we're
it was
gonna talk about that
1.2.
budget.
Okay.
What you're
Oh,
talking about,
perfect.
Fiona, is the reverse.
Okay.
Right, is what you were just talking about, is you just mentioned we could do it the reverse way and see if we can use the roof money to make the window project, but I don't think that we really talked about wanting to do that.
no, I'm just saying there's a lot of different options, but none of the options are things that the Board of Ed can decide on its own, so,
But what we can decide is to use ARPA funds for the windows. We
right,
can decide that.
Yes,
that we can decide, right.
And that's in the existing plan that's been submitted, right?
Well, no.
that's what we're gonna talk
Oh,
about
okay.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right, I have
Discuss it
presented it
budget.
previous.
Right. But I think, so what we would need to, or want to do as a board then, at the board's next meeting is decide how we want to or what we want to ask the city for, right? That's what we have to decide as a group.
Well, so our next meeting falls outside of when there would be votes, so that's why I ended up on tonight, because this all just kind of happened, so that's how it ended up.
Right, and they need an answer within 2 weeks, just because they have to move forward with referendum items and submit that to the state. So they're not being arbitrary, they're just saying, that's our deadline, so we need to know what you want to do and how we would move forward.
Ellen and John?
I think the only suggestion is have a joint meeting. I think we need more clarification and studying, and I think we need a joint meeting.
John?
And I just need to point out that if we had gotten our capital budget request, there wouldn't be a problem. There wouldn't be a we have to do it now problem.
Correct.
So it's not like we are making this problem.
No, this was just brought up this week, so that's why I'm bringing it, so.
Would there
Yeah,
need
thank
to
you.
be any kind of, there doesn't have to be a vote of the board here, if it's just a matter of requesting that the Board of Finance or the City Council take certain actions, right? So we don't necessarily need to vote as a board for the process to move forward as long as you guys have a sense of where people are at, right?
Right, and I think, so tonight we thought if we put it here, and then kind of have an idea where people wanted to go with it. And make a decision.
Although I agree with that one for what it's worth, that if we can get a joint meeting, that would be ideal.
No, I got
Any other questions on that for now? All right, topics for future meetings.
So just let me know if there's something you want me to do in terms
Truck,
of
the
next
foyer.
steps.
Right here.
You say negotiate.
And then probably at some point, we'll want to go over,
Tech
like if
update.
we have cleaning protocols or whatever we're going to be doing in schools.
Yeah.
this
We're
year.
we're still kind of waiting for guidance on that.
Yeah, that's what I say, for future meetings, who
Yeah.
knows what's actually gonna happen, but when it's decided, at least we can talk about it. All right,
Be
anything else?
sometime in late December, they'll tell us.
Yeah,
I think they've actually been clear on that, so that won't be as delayed. Fingers crossed.
all right. Comments for good of the order, we'll go this way. Oh. Good meeting.
Many thanks to John and Ally and their teams. They've done a phenomenal job, and for all the, well, I'll save that for the next meeting. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Lynn,
And,
Hi, everyone.
yeah.
Kim.
Nope. Hi, everyone. Nope, I'm good.
Ally,
See what Kim said. Hi, everyone. I'm done.
Ellen. Kathy. Sandy.
How's that?
John. Yes.
Good stuff tonight.
Welcome, Lynn. Thank you, John, Ally, for your work, much appreciated. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?